Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 7. This is an interview with Randy A. Brown, who is a freelance writer and blogger based outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. He's most prominently known for his work on the Elegant Themes blog, where he continually does product reviews and plugin reviews and a lot of really detailed and thorough tutorials. He also writes for several other Divi-related websites and wider WordPress sites as well. And the cool thing about this interview is that he didn't always do this. In fact, he was a manufacturing engineer who, at the age of 46, decided to do a complete career change and start his own freelance writing business. And that's what he does now full-time, supporting his family. And this talk was so awesome because I was really looking forward to this, to hear his story, because I was so curious about what it would take to go from a role like that as a corporate engineer to starting your own business. We get to hear all about that. He really took a leap of faith and just went for it again at the age of 46. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's no age where it's too late to get into web design or some version of web design, whether it's writing or whatever. And he did it, and we get to hear about that transition. He also talks about things that you can do successfully if you're a writer or if you're a blogger and you want to monetize doing writing online. So we cover a lot of really cool topics, a wide range of methods and tactics and strategies that you can apply to your business right now. And if you're on the fence, if you're somebody who wants to start their own business, but you're maybe still working full-time somewhere else and you've been on the fence as to whether you want to start, this may be the episode that makes you take the leap, because you'll get to hear about how Randy did that. And again, he's full-time blogging, working from home, and he loves it. So you're going to hear all about that. Before we dive in, this episode is brought to you by my Divi WordPress Beginners course. When Randy, you'll hear about this, when Randy started into writing, he didn't know anything about WordPress, and he took the long and hard route of learning everything himself. And he actually talked about how he wished he would have just found a course that showed him the most important things to get him from point A to B. And that's exactly what my Divi WordPress Beginners course does. Yes, you can find everything you want to know for free on Google, but the trade-off is that it's going to take you a lot of time. And time, guys, is the most valuable asset that you need to protect. Whatever saves you the most time, that's what I recommend investing in. And my Divi WordPress Beginners course is a very quick, low-cost course that will get you from point A to point B. So check that out if you want to learn WordPress in Divi. All right, guys, enjoy my talk with freelance writer and blogger Randy A. Brown. I'll tell you right now, you might want to get some popcorn and just chill out and relax with this one, because it is entertaining. So enjoy the talk, guys. Here you go. Randy, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to chat here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So you are a freelance blogger and a writer. Mm-hmm. You most prominently write for the Elegant Themes blog, and you also write for Divi Cake and Divi Space and a bunch of other marketplaces and big websites for Divi and other WordPress community sites as well. I know you do other sorts of writing online, but before we get to that, you have not always been a writer, and you haven't always done freelance blogging, and I'm really excited to talk with you because you have one heck of a story, because you came from a manufacturing and engineering background. I would love to start off by just hearing kind of your story, how you went from being in an industry that was completely different. How did that happen? How did you go from being an engineer and then getting into freelance writing?
Well, I have a kind of a diverse background, I guess. It's actually more diverse than that. I started as a manufacturing molding supervisor. I managed the molding department of a figurine manufacturing company, and I did that for about 10 years almost. And
it wasn't G.I. Joe, was it?
No. Okay. It was little figurines, all kinds of little pecan shell resin figurines. And from there, I became a sculptor, as I enjoy sculpting. But before that, I had gotten a degree in electronics and then went into management. And then from there, I went to become an electronics technician working on consumer electronics. I did that for about 7 years, 9 years, in that range. I forgot how old I am. But from there, I went to manufacturing as an engineering technician, and I was that for 6 or 7 years, and then I became an industrial engineer, and I was an industrial engineer for the last 3 years. Then I quit. I quit my industrial engineering job and started a freelance writing business. I always wanted my own business. I always knew that from a child. I knew I wanted my own business, but I didn't know what that was. It wasn't really the work that I was worried about or concerned about. It was the fact of me being my own boss, me working from home, just doing work I enjoy doing. The problem is I enjoy a lot of work, a lot of things, and it's really hard to figure out what that is. And so I was driving. I worked at Denso. I don't know if we can say the names of places, but I worked at Denso
sure.
in Maryville, and I live in Sweetwater. So you're talking about a 43-mile drive both ways. So I'm driving 86 miles a day, and I'm listening to lots of podcasts, and I'm always trying to come up with my own business. And I knew it needed to be low overhead. I knew it needed to pay me. It needed to be realistic. It needed to be solid. It needed to be, even though it could fluctuate, you might make a lot one week and not as much the next week. That was okay as long as it balanced. I needed to have that balance. And so one day, I don't even remember what podcast this was, but one day I was listening to a podcast that said, the guest on there was talking about coming up with your own business idea. Now, I'd gone through thousands of business ideas. I come up with idea after idea, I analyze it, I look at it, I either lose interest or decide that it's too much competition, or decide that I don't like it enough, decide that it's too expensive. Also, I didn't want to do something on the side. I wanted to do something that I can quit what I was doing and then do it full time. I didn't want 2 jobs.
Great point.
I'm driving 86 miles a day. I'm gone from home between 10 and 12 hours a day. I didn't want 2 jobs. So I knew I needed to do something that I could ramp up quick. So I'm listening to this podcast, and the guy, he's talking about advice for coming up with your own business ideas. And he said, one thing is to ask yourself, what are you good at? List things you're good at. And I don't remember the number. It's like 5 things. List 5 things you're good at. And so I'm going through my mind, and I'm thinking about, what are the things people know me for? What are the things people compliment me for? And all my life, that's been writing. That's always been at the top of the list. I'm a guitar player. I can play a little guitar, sculpt, and do a few other things, but those are not what I'm really known for. I'm known for writing. Even managers at Denso would bring me their papers when they were in school. They were still taking college courses. They would bring me their papers to edit, to go over and give them advice, and just give it a glance over, not write it for them, of course, but
wow, that's interesting.
To help them edit. And so everyone thought of me as a writer. And when I'm saying this, I'm not talking about my mother. I'm talking about students that I'm
colleagues
in college
and professionals
class, right,
and stuff.
Exactly. People I'm in college class with. People, because I took a business with a focus on IT, business management with a focus on IT. And for college composition and for technical writing, my college professors would use my work as examples of here's how you structure an article and things along that line. So fellow students, so I was always complimented on my writing. So that was the top of my list. And then I threw in a few other things, sculpting and, guitar playing, some things like that, consulting, teaching. And then the next question was, of the things you are good at, what is in demand? And at that point, I hadn't really considered that writing was in demand. It never crossed my mind. But then I went home and I'm looking at what types of writing are available. Well, there's technical writer, which, I have a lot of experience in, because that was part of what I did as an industrial engineer. I had to create courses to teach other managers and group leaders and associates about our processes in lean manufacturing. I would develop databases, and from those databases, I would create users guides, and that had to be to the common person that was going to use this database. How do you approach this? And I learned quick, don't leave out steps. Never leave out steps. Put all the information in there, but put it in there in a way that they can understand. So I already had a lot of experience in technical writing from on the job.
Isn't that fascinating how a completely different industry can translate to writing or web design or whatever?
It is. And then, so I knew that I had that background in writing. I knew that was a skill, but then I found that, it is in demand. I didn't realize how much in demand it really was. So I'm looking at, technical writing is in demand. And then, but what can I do from home? That's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm finding that articles are in demand. And think about that. Blogs run from articles. They need content. That's how this works. They need content to work. And all these news magazines, all these online, everything, they're filled with articles, and those are written by professional writers. So then the next question was, of the things that are in demand, what can you afford to provide? And well, of course, writing is low overhead, because what you need to write is a good keyboard. And I mean a good quality keyboard, because if you're typing and you have to correct every other word because it doesn't take a key, throw that one away. You need a good laptop or a good desktop. You need a good keyboard. You need a computer that's got enough power to handle the images you're dealing with. You need an internet connection. You need a word processor. And what computer doesn't come with some sort of word processor?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
You really don't need too much, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everything you need to run your business, you can use Google Sheets. You can use Docs. I mean, there's plenty of free apps out there. And I'm using paint.net for my images, and there's plenty of free stuff out there. And then, of course, you can graduate from there and go into the better quality, depending on what you need. But the overhead was low. So I processed this for a while. I went through and I processed, and I'm thinking through it, and I'm processing it. And I decided that it really is something that would work. And so I quit my job, because I didn't want two jobs. I didn't want to develop a user base or develop a client base that I couldn't meet their demands because I'm working for someone else for a living. It was an either or for me.
That's
so I quit.
That's a really good mindset. So many people start their businesses and try to do it on the side for so long to where they can never take it off. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. That's just an important, every person I've talked to so far, that has been the key element. Like, they went for it.
Yeah, just go for it. And the one thing, I read several books before I even started this. I read several books about technical writing, white papers for dummies, which white papers is what I had in my mind that I would do. You could also be a journalist. You could also
What's
do
white papers?
copywriting.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, a white paper is an article that is, instead of 10 to 12 pages long, would be more like 40 pages long.
Oof.
It would include graphs, charts. It would include a lot of detailed research.
Okay.
That's targeted to the buyer. So if you're writing a white paper about a robot, say, because we built robots at Denso and we developed these things. So if we're controlling this robot and we're designing it and we're building it, we can sell this to another manufacturing company. We need a white paper to go with.
So that's almost more like documentation, right?
Documentation. It's a brochure.
Gotcha.
It's how to. It's the value of it written to the buyer. And it tells them what benefit they're going to get from it. And it's researched, well-researched material. And research is one of my strengths.
Okay.
So white papers is what I had in mind, because you might take 1 to 2 months to write a white paper.
Oh yeah. Something 40 pages. That's graphs and yeah. Cause I was wondering how you got into WordPress. Is that kind of how you found WordPress and Elegant Themes?
No, that was something totally different. But, how that happened was, I graduated college in 2009. I went back to school. I got a business management degree. And
what age were you, Randy, when you went back to college?
It was 2000s. I don't remember. I was 40s, I think.
That's awesome.
Something like that. Halfway through, I started taking one class per semester so that I could have more time at home. So it ended up taking me extra years. It was like 5 or 6 years.
Sure.
To
the night school route. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I started in 2003, in that range.
Okay.
And then I graduated in 2009, something along that line. And the reason I started school was because in 2001, I decided I was going to be a web developer. And I got Microsoft Office 2001 with Front Page. And I'm going to develop websites with Front Page. And so I'm putting these websites together, and all I know how to do is a little bit of, move this here and move that there and use the templates they have. And yay, I'm a web developer. And so I get randyaBrown.com, and I'm trying to develop websites, and I have no idea what I'm doing, and I knew it. So I decided to stop. I decided to go to college and take some classes in web development, in database management, in networking. I got sidetracked, and I started focus on network engineering, and business focus, but then for IT, network engineering. And then from there, I got the job as an engineering technician, and then I wasn't working on networks, and I wanted to use my knowledge of something I was actually working on. So I wanted to go along the line of databases. So I went with that for a little bit, but I wasn't using that enough. And then so I took a few others, and the next thing I knew, I had management of information systems is actually what my degree is. Business management with management of information systems as the IT focus. And then once I graduated, I had already taken a lot of classes in IT. I'd already taken a lot of classes in writing, college composition 1 and 2, and then technical writing. And then I did a lot of writing all the way through with a business mindset. So I was writing articles, basically, writing business plans. And then even my final teacher for my capstone project told me that I should start a business writing business plans. So I'm like, this is in the back of my mind here. People are telling me I should write.
I just wanted to bring up something you said right there, because you said you had a business mindset. So you're a writer now with a business mindset, which is so important and crucial to be successful, because I think a lot of people, I talked about this with Nathan B. Weller a couple episodes ago about how a lot of artisans and writers have a more artistic mindset to where that's very hard to be sustainable. And if you have a more business or more scientific approach, it can set you up for winning for the long run. Exactly. So that sounds like that really, I'm fascinated because you're talking about all these things that I'm sure on the outside, people were like, Randy, what the heck are you thinking going into freelance writing, right?
Exactly.
Because how old were you when you quit your job?
46.
Gosh, that's amazing. 46, you quit your job to pursue freelance writing. And
start my own
like
business
a lot of
at
people,
46.
a lot of people are like in their early 20s and they're like, oh, I'm too old. I need to get a job. It's, I mean, you were the prime example. It's the wild, wild west when it's anything digital. You can do whatever the heck you want, however scale you want to. So, gosh, that's amazing. Now, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you, but I'm kind of curious how Elegant Themes and WordPress got involved there.
Okay. So when I graduated college, I had already taken these classes in writing. I had already honed these writing skills, and I wanted to keep that. I wanted to sharpen my writing skills. So I thought, well, I'll start a website. So I'm going to create my own online school teaching ministry or something like that.
Gotcha. So
I figured, well, instead of developing the website, by hand, coding it by hand, for some reason, I thought that was a good idea. I thought, well, why don't I just do this blog thing people are talking about? It's something like WordPress, something. So I started a free WordPress website, randyaBrown.wordpress.com, something like that. And then I started learning WordPress from there. And then that was only for the purpose of keeping my writing skills. And so that by blogging, I was making a promise to my readers that I would produce material. So I started a ministry site. And then from there, I started doing Bible reviews because I'm starting to need glasses, and I didn't know that because I'm 40s, and I didn't know that. And so the Bible that I'm using is really small print and really faint print, and the paper you can see through. And I'm trying to find one, and I promise this is getting to the point. And I'm trying to find one, and then I end up finding something, but I can't find reviews. And I'm looking for reviews of these Bibles, and the reviews are things like, I bought it for my grandson and he loves it. Well, I'm sure he told you that, but how does that help me know if I need this? So I ended up buying the Bible and then writing the review myself. And that was a very popular article. It was actually the most popular article on the site. And then I started doing a couple more reviews. And then next thing you know, I decided to call the review category Bible Buying Guide. And then I'm looking at a hotspot, a heat map on my website. And all the articles were like, 1 click, 2 clicks. Then Bible Buying Guide was 50 clicks. So I figured I was onto something. So I started BibleBuyingGuide.com, and I needed a theme. I wanted the perfect theme for this. And so I go to Elegant Themes. I actually, for the ministry side, I had already gone to Elegant Themes and signed up. So I'm signed up in 2010, I think it was, is when
Okay,
I
so
signed up for Elegant Themes.
pre-Divi.
Yeah, pre-Divi. And so I'm using Elegant Themes, and I had already determined at that point Elegant Themes was my company. I liked Elegant Themes. I was hooked. Since 2009, 2010, I've been hooked on Elegant Themes. And then I've also been hooked on WordPress. So once I started my business, I didn't really have an idea of what I was going to write and who I was going to write for. They tell you to, get you some clients ahead of time. I was like, I'm just going to wing it. And they also tell you that it takes between 6 months to a year to get your first client. I got my first client. Actually, it can take 3 months if you're really lucky. I got my first client in 29 days.
Nice.
So,
Isn't it great when they tell you something and you prove them wrong immediately? I remember one of my colleagues or one of my friends in high school, he was a total academic, like college guy, 4-year degree kind of guy, which I am not. And he was like, dude, you're starting your own business. That's risky, man. It's going to take at least 5 years before you make any money. Well, you didn't understand the business of web design. You can make money very quickly when your overhead's low, to your point.
Exactly. Day one, actually.
Yeah.
It's easy, not easy to do, but it's doable. It really is. That's the thing I like about the internet. It's wide open. You can create pretty much any type of business you want. It's wide open. It's just a matter of getting the audience. That's really the key. And then, so I quit my job. I started my writing business. I still use randyaBrown.com. So I'm developing my business website using Divi. It took me a while to change over to Divi because once I started using all the Elegant Themes, and then here comes Divi, and I'm like, I need to try this. And I load it up, and it's got all these blocks, and you got to move these blocks around. I'm like, I'm going to come back to this and try it. And I loaded up my old theme again. And then I came back to Divi again, and I'm like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to try it. And I look at something and I'm like, it's not too difficult. I can move this block around and I can move that block around. It's like 6 months after Divi started, after it launched. And then here I am using Divi. So then when I change over to Bible Buying Guide, I'm using, Elegant News, I think was the name of the theme. I used that one for years. And then here comes Extra. And I had my eye on Extra for a long time. I had been following all the articles about it, all the hype about it, looking at what it can do, and I knew it's what I wanted because it's for blogging. It's a news magazine. That's what I wanted. So I decided one day I'm just going to try it on Bible Buying Guide just to see what it does. And I click on it, and it worked perfectly. I didn't have to change anything. It just worked. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to having to reformat everything. I was used to having to change everything around and move everything around because I changed a lot of themes before. I had gone from free theme to free theme before I went to Elegant Themes.
Sure. Yeah. Everyone's story.
Yeah. I already liked Elegant Themes. So when I quit my job in 2014, I didn't know who my clients were going to be, didn't know what I was going to focus on. I figured I would focus on probably copywriting. So, a company might say, hey, we need something to go with our potato chip bag. As it turns out, I don't really care for that kind of writing. I'm not a copywriter. I would rather write something for 1,000 words than 10 words. It's just better for me. Choosing the right 10 words.
Particularly from your background, being detail oriented, engineering, manufacturing. Yeah. You're gonna take 10 words and make it 100 easily, right?
Right. So I start the business and I got the site running, and then I'm reading articles on Elegant Themes blog. And this article was written by Brenda Barron, and it was about freelancing, how to start your own freelancing business. And I'm sure you've heard of Brenda Barron. She was prominent on there for a while.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading that article, and I'm like, I bet this writer has more articles on their website about freelancing because she seems to write a lot about freelancing. So I went to her website, and I'm sure enough, she has several articles. And so I'm looking through the articles, and I'm reading them, and here's a little thing, subscribe. And I'm like, why not? Might as well subscribe. So I go to the subscribe page, and I'm reading about her newsletter, and I find a spelling error. And I'm like, okay, she's a writer. She's talking about freelancing, and she's wanting you to notice her as a writer, and there's this spelling error. This is right there, and it's bugging me. and I had to say something. I'm like, okay, do I just ignore this? I'm just going to ignore it. So I'm like, I can't ignore this. So I'm not the kind of person that just calls you up and say, hey, Josh, you got an error on your page. I can't do that. I've got to sandwich this into an introduction, and then here's the body, and then here's the ending. It's nice. I'm thinking of it like how I would handle this conversation. So I write her and I thank her for her articles, of how awesome her articles are. I really appreciate them. And the reason I'm reading them is because of, I'm starting my own freelance writing business. Mm-hmm. And, so I'm looking through her article. By the way, there's this little spelling error. And then, okay.
I love that. I love that because so many people, that's a problem with me. I'm not a detail. I struggle with grammar and spelling. I'm sure if you've read plenty of my posts, I'm sure I probably irked you many a times, which you're always welcome to reach out to me. But yeah, a lot of people will just say, hey, I found this error on your site. Whereas that approach with hey, I love what you're doing. I really appreciate this. By the way, if it's a great way to give constructive criticism.
Yeah, it really is. And then she wrote back thanking me for pointing it out to her. And then she was telling me that she's thinking about expanding her business by creating a writing team. And also she's wanting to have some freelance writers write on her website. And since I'm starting a business, freelance writing, would I be interested in either joining her team or writing an article or two for her site? So I'm like, sure, why not? And so I write an article for her. She liked it. And then I write a few more for her website, and she likes it. And so from there, pretty much she writes about WordPress. So from there, I'm a WordPress writer. And then I started pitching another article idea or two to a few other websites out there as a guest writer. So, that way I can build my portfolio. So I had a few on her website, and then I'm writing a few free ones out there. I think I only wrote maybe one, actually, now that I think about it. One free article. And then from there, I built my portfolio, and then I started pitching to potential clients. And I've been writing about WordPress ever since. So from day one, my first client wanted a WordPress article, and then I've been a WordPress writer. And then from there, she introduced me to Nathan. Actually, she introduced Nathan to me. Okay. Something like that. She introduced us.
Gotcha. That's fascinating. So it just took that act of reaching out to her. Yeah. And that's what's so important. Even whatever kind of reach out it is, I tell people all the time, you never know where that's going to lead. Like if you send an email to somebody, worst case scenario, they don't respond or they take offense to it and then you move on. Like what's the worst that can happen? Look at the doors that opened up, Now, the big question I have is you're 46 and the business is not up and running per se. Like you don't even, like you said, you didn't even quite know who your demographic or your audience was. Did you have a blanket or like a security net of finances at that point? Or did you really just go for it with a little more risk involved? What did that look like?
I had a little bit of savings. So I had the money that I needed to live on for enough months that I was covered. And then if I couldn't do it within those few months, then I was going to just go get something else.
I think that's great. And I think it's so important for people who want to start a new career to realize, because a lot of people I've found in web design, depending on what age they're getting into it. I mean, it's different when you're like 19 and you don't have any bills or expenses. You can do whatever the heck you want. But 46, you got a family, you got mortgages, you got insurance, all this other stuff. That's a gold gem of some wisdom is to have probably 3 to 6 months to where because you got to give yourself at least a few months to be able to get it going. I mean, you can make money quickly in web design, but you're probably not going to pay a mortgage in the first month. You gotta give yourself a little window there.
Plus, you're not worth as much at first.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Good point. I mean, I imagine for you had that writing background, so it's not like you just, you were struggling to put words together. But yeah, to your point, and even in your situation, WordPress was fairly new, probably, or you were getting to know WordPress as you were writing, right?
Yeah. And then I had used WordPress since 2009. I started in 2014, so numbers. So I had been using it for a few years. And fortunately, WordPress is not difficult to learn. And even if all you know it is as an intermediate level, well, you can teach beginners.
Yes.
There's always something to teach.
Yes. That's one reason I created my Divi WordPress beginners course is because it is overwhelming when you try to learn everything yourself. mainly because if you search anything online, it's just so oversaturated. You're going to find articles by you and by me on the Like Themes blog or our different channels, and you're going to find tons of stuff, and it's almost more time to weed out stuff that you want to try to find. Whereas like I felt like a course that shows you the most important aspects that you need to know to get going. This will get you from point A to point B, so you can start building websites. You get to know WordPress, get to know Divi. And then from there, then we can take the next step. Then you can learn more about the aspects and things like that. So that's an interesting viewpoint too. That for your point, like you probably had to learn the most important stuff first, right? And then you kind of grew from there.
Yeah. So I already had the basics down, so I could create my own site. I could, install a theme. I could do some adjustments with it. I knew enough about CSS to be dangerous, and then
enough to wreck your site, and then
exactly. Yeah. And then I knew how to install a plugin, how to uninstall a plugin correctly, what to look for in a plugin, what to avoid. The same with themes, what to avoid, how to know to avoid them, how to know a good theme when you see it, so I had those basics down. And then from there, I started learning other techniques. I took child theme courses. I took CSS courses, including yours, which is awesome. This course is awesome. Take that one. I've took courses from several others. I've actually taken quite a few courses in jQuery and CSS and child theme. But
they're so valuable, aren't they? I just feel like I'm a sucker for online courses now, not only as a creator, but I still go through them. Like I just went through a podcasting course before I launched this because I was like, you know what? I can figure out how to do a podcast. I'm tech savvy, but the amount of time that's going to be involved with me figuring out on my own. And then the other aspect was like, well, how do I launch it? How do I market it? What are some strategies from people who've already done it? That like, I was happy. I'll just say right now, I invested $700 in a course and it was worth every penny because it saved me hours and hours and hours. And I value my time much more than that. And it sounds like that for you too, Randy. Like, did you get to a point in your career where you realized that time was the most important thing? Because that's really how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of my motivation because I was gone from home 12 hours a day, a lot of times. And then from there, my kids are growing up. They're growing up without me. And so I wanted to be closer to them. I wanted to be able to work around them. And so my time was more important to me. And an example of that is, it takes me about a day to write an article, sometimes two. So if I've met my weekly goal, a lot of people would work extra. They would work Saturday and do yet another article, but I'm more likely to just take the time off. I would rather be with my family. It just depends on what your goals are. It depends on what your own motivation is. Depends on what your needs are. We're all in different places in our needs and in our lifestyles and things like that. So I would rather have my time that I can use for my own projects, I can use with my family or something along that line.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was talking with, I recorded an episode yesterday with Stephanie Hudson from Sweet Tea Design and Focus WP. I think that episode's going to come out after yours, but she had a really good point in where we were talking about how when you do your own business, often it's going to take more time than if you worked salary somewhere, but the trade-off is the freedom of how you utilize that time. And you can always make a lot more. As you just mentioned, you become more valuable. So yes, sometimes I work more on certain weeks than others. And like, I'm in a really busy season right now because second baby's coming soon. And I'm trying to get as much lined up. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting ready for some sleep deprivation and trying to get all these interviews recorded and a bunch of projects busted out. But the cool thing is I still work around my family's time. I've never missed I've never missed any of my daughter's children's visits or anything like that. And that is just crucial to me. Like that's what yes, I do work more hours sometimes, but sometimes I work way less. Like I have the freedom, like after this, I've got some stuff I can work on, but maybe I'll stop early. Tomorrow, I'm going to work till probably like noon or 1 on a Friday. We're recording this on a Thursday. Like tomorrow, I generally keep Fridays at about half days. So the freedom to be able to do your own thing with anything web design, websites, development, writing. I mean, that's what's amazing about it.
Yeah, I love that freedom. Something happens, I need to go to a store, I get up and go. I don't have to ask my boss if it's okay. I just get up and go. As long as I meet my deadlines, that's my goal. I have to meet my deadlines.
Yeah. Do you have weekly deadlines, or do you have monthly, or how does it?
I have daily deadlines.
Okay.
And by deadlines, I'm referring to this article is due this day. And every day I have an article due. And I tried to use like a week ahead if I can, but that's not always doable. And also, a lot of times it'll be like, I need this article this week, but it's not specified what day that is.
Okay.
So if it's due Friday, I might get it done Monday. I might get it done Tuesday. But if something else comes up, I can push it back as long as I'm done by Friday. So I pretty much have daily.
And that's what's cool about writing and WordPress stuff in general, any content creation, because you can do it in bulk and you can always get it ready and schedule things out. Yeah, that's one thing I love about, I'm learning with podcasts. Like I'm doing three interviews this week and then 2 interviews next week. And that gives me 5, well, depending on how many I launch a week, 1 to 2 a week, that'll give me a buffer to where I may not do podcasts for another couple of weeks and then jump back into it. I know writing's the same way.
So now you blog on your own website.
Yes. So my website is primarily vlogs. Now my tutorial, I don't really consider my tutorials blogs per se. They are, but I take a different approach when I write for Elegant Themes because it's interesting. We're both Elegant Themes blog authors. However, I was talking with Nathan about this a couple of years ago at a WordCamp. He was saying it's interesting that because we were all there together. He was saying that we have our own specialties. Like you are the more detailed oriented stuff with product reviews, which again stems from your background with documenting products and reviews and things like that. And I know you're very thorough. Like if a new plugin comes out, I'm more likely to check out your thorough review than the product site because you're going to talk about it honestly. Like here are the pros, here are some cons, all this kind of stuff. And then my writing is a little more like business oriented from just my experience, like client relations and stuff like that. So it's like 2 specialties, which is really interesting on the Elegant Themes blog. And then, when I started my joshhall.co stuff, that's for one, I wanted to have a place to link all of my blog posts at Elegant Themes. So I have them all archived there, all my series. And then I also wanted to start doing tutorials. And then that's what opened the door for doing more like videos and then eventually courses and now the podcast and who knows what's next, So that's kind of how I went about it.
And that comes to a key point with business. You're doing a lot of things. You're not focused on just one thing. And then if that one thing doesn't keep you busy today, you're not making money because you have something else you're working on.
And I think it's a healthy balance because I think some people spread themselves too thin to where if you give, if you're giving 20% on 5 different endeavors, those are only going to go so far. For me, though, the key was to scale my web design business. So now I'm not actually designing any of the sites and doing a lot of the development. I have a team that's growing with that. So that's what kind of freed me up to do this more. But like I love that because I can do a tutorial, a podcast. I can write for Elegant Themes. I haven't written much at all the past year or so, but I want to more once time allows for it. But there's like all these different things that fit under one umbrella, which is really cool. And I never get bored. That's for sure. I'm always doing something different.
Excellent. Now, for a web developer, you have so many ways that you can scale. You're talking about scaling. As a writer, you still have lots of ways you can scale, but it's different. For writing, I get paid by the project or by the word, just like you would with a web design. But once you're done with a web design, you're paid for it and you're done. But then you can also do maintenance. You can also do other things along with that. For me, there's no maintenance to an article. So it's just a matter of getting the next one. So in order to scale a writing business, you have lots of different ways you can do that. I was talking about Brenda a minute ago, how she built a writing team. Well, then you can be the manager of your team, and then you can have other writers under you where you go get them work, and then they do the work, and then you're the editor, and you're managing them. So, that's one way you can scale. Another way you can scale is to blog on your own website, which I love blogging. I like writing on my own website. And then from there, you can have affiliate sales, and then you can have your own products. You can develop your own courses, writing courses. You can write books. And the books, of course, can be on any topic that you either write about or what you want to teach about.
Sure.
And as a writer, I feel like I'm a teacher. Just about more than anything, I'm a teacher, and writing is the method that I teach.
Gotcha.
It's how I deliver the teaching. How do you feel about that?
Well, I love that you said that. I'll answer that question as far as being a teacher as a writer next here, but I got to hit on those tips that you just mentioned because those are great. I always kind of wondered with freelance writing because, you could potentially put yourself in a vulnerable situation, just like web design. If you don't have any recurring income, it's feast or famine, project to project. However, I imagine, particularly like with your relationship with Elegant Themes, as a recurring writer, I imagine you could probably agree to like a certain amount a month for 3 or 6 months, right? Like they can expect, which that's one thing that Nathan told me is the problem with freelance writers who own their own businesses is you never know when they're going to be available. Whereas if you are a writer, you could probably commit and it gives you some stable income as long as you hit your deadlines.
Right.
But those are some other great points.
Yeah. I get a lot of offers for full-time work. From some of the big names. I don't want to name them, but some of the big names, that they would rather hire me that way. I'm exclusive, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that exclusivity, and that's promising. That's a good idea for a lot of people. For me, I still have that I'm my own boss thing, and to me that comes first. I like scheduling my own time. I like determining what I'm going to write and what I'm not going to write. Nathan doesn't say, write this. Nathan will, give me options and say, would you like to write this? And that's the way all of my clients are. None of them say, write this and I want it done at this time. I've had a few that have tried that and I've never written for them again.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And it's the same problem in web design I've found with really big projects. One of the problems is like, it sounds really cool if you get like a $15 or $20 or $30,000 job. It's like, holy crap, that's a ton of money. Well, that comes with a lot of strings attached a lot of times. Sometimes they're like, you're almost working part-time for a company for 3 to 6 months or something, Exactly. I would much rather do $3,000 to $5,000 small to medium-sized website builds for companies, to your point, like you're your own, because when you hire or when you get hired as a freelancer, you are, I almost say that you're not your own boss because the client is essentially the boss. They're like, okay, here's the deliverables, the deadlines, and you have to meet those. Now you are your own project manager. I guess you're your own boss in your time because as long as you get the project done, but you're not fully in control to where, I mean, that's inevitable. All our business and writing or web design, we're not fully in control unless you just own your own influencer site and you do everything. But it sounds like it's a partnership. Yeah. And you sounds like you're really working on that balance of like, here are the deadlines, but I want to have the freedom to do what I want when I want to make that happen.
I love not having a time clock. I love not having an alarm clock, but I have to meet that goal every day. And that's the key. I've heard a lot of people say that they're not disciplined enough to focus on the writing. There's distractions out there. I mean, you can spend all day on Facebook without even noticing. I'll go to Facebook and I'll need to look at what people are talking about for this certain topic. What kind of problems are they having so that I know what to focus on this article. And then I get distracted and I'm looking at this thing over here and here's somebody asking me a question and I got 5 conversations going at once and I'm trying to get through and I'm answering them. And then I'm like, I need to get back to work. So I'm just going to close out Facebook and then I'm going to go back to my article. And then realize, oh, wait, I needed to go to Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why I was there, because of this article. So I don't always, distractions.
I don't always do this. I'm trying to get better because that's the same problem. I mean, everyone has that problem. But one thing I've tried to do is to set like time limits to say, okay, I'm going to go to Facebook for this and this and this. I'm going to be distracted. So maybe I'll give myself a little leeway, but like 20 minutes max. Like look at the clock. Once it hits noon or whatever, I'm jumping off. And it kind of makes you stay on target because before you know
are the manager. You have to manage yourself. And that's the problem with being any kind of business owner. You are in control, but at the same time, you are responsible.
Did you struggle with that coming from a corporate background because a lot of people tell me I could never work at home because I'm not disciplined enough, or they say, I don't know how you work from home. I would do house stuff all the time. Like, did you have a transition period going from the corporate world to doing your own thing at home?
Not really. I'm very focused and just the way it is. I work. I like to do the work. I like to do the job. I like to get the job done. My goal every day is to get the job done and have it done right, have it done well. so that's my approach. Even when I'm done working, I'm working. I'm doing something.
I was just going to say, did you have the opposite problem where you suddenly work 24/7? Because that's the hard. I think a lot of people, when they think working from home, they think, oh, you sleep in till 10, you hop on your email for, 15, 20 minutes, and then you get to go get lunch, and you come back and you do a little bit of work, and then you just do whatever. Like, a lot of people don't understand when you work from home, you go from 9 to 5, and it can very easily be 24/7, and you really have to be careful about that. Did you struggle with that then?
I didn't struggle with it, but I'm more likely to have that problem.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to forget to eat lunch or forget to stop at the end of the day, and just want to keep researching or keep looking at something. And you have to say, well, I've got to get this article done. It's got to be done by today, so I want to get it done at this time. So I have to spend this much time researching this thing. And then if I'm not careful, I'll spend way too much time researching that thing, and then spend too much time developing this layout just to get this one screenshot to put in the article. And
interesting. Do you limit yourself with time then for your article? Like, do you give yourself, because you have to do that with all projects to where it's like, okay, I've got a certain amount of time I want to stick to. If you charge $2,000 for a website, the more time you spend building that website, the less you're going to make. So do you kind of have that approach with writing to where you try to limit your time as much as possible?
I do. It's kind of built in though. If I have 5 articles due this week, then I have to either get one done a day, or I have to get one done in a day and a half and another done in a half day. So I have an idea of how long things are going to take. And so it's sort of just, it works, it balances itself. I have to be disciplined enough to stick to that balance, to stick to that structure. If not, then I won't meet my deadlines, and my deadlines are my goal. I'm known for meeting deadlines.
Yeah. Now I imagine, because the writing you're doing, some of the technical stuff, I feel like you could do whether you're inspired or not with creativity, but some of the other writing, what do you do? Because everyone has lulls with creativity, and there's days where you're just like, I've got nothing. I can't write today. I feel the same way with stuff. Some days I'm on and some days I'm like, I've got nothing. Do you work from home solely, or do you go out to coffee shops? What does that look like? How do you balance creativity and all that?
I work solely from home in the living room, sitting in my easy chair, with my feet propped up, and a cat usually sitting across me, or in an arm. So I'm typing with one hand. But as far as creativity, I write what I need to have there to tell you what you need to know. That might be boring at first. So it might not be anything that feels inspired at all. It's just getting the information there. So when I'm approaching, say, a plugin overview or review, I will load up the plugin and I'll just start talking about, and I don't even always use these, but I'll take screen captures of me installing the plugin and going through all the steps. And here I am going through the process, and I'm working through teaching someone how to use this. And I don't even think in my mind whether it's creative or anything like that. It's just that this is what I'm doing. I know what I need to do because I know that I need to tell you to install it. Do you
almost visualize like sitting down with somebody and like walking them through that kind of?
In a way, yeah. Not necessarily as to a specific person, to where I would say, I've got this avatar, and this person is, the name to this, and they have this background. I think more of an audience rather than a single person. But in a way, I do that. I do approach it in a way that this audience needs to know how to step through this process. And
that's interesting.
For plugin, I would do. And the reason I do this is because it's a diverse background. We don't have just one person in our audience that we're trying to reach. We're trying to reach people who are English is not their first language, people who have no idea what Divi is and even how to spell it, people who have been in Divi longer than I have and know it inside out and can teach me everything that I don't know. So we have such a diverse background in our audience that I try to bring down the highly technical information down to the level that the people at the bottom of the scale knowledge can understand it, but at the same time the people at the top of the scale are not left out. So that's one of my strengths, actually, and I've had a lot of people say that.
I totally agree, and it's so tricky. I bring it down. Yeah, that's so tricky because you gotta cater to everybody without leaving anyone out. But
exactly,
that's hard in itself because some of the advanced people are going to get bored, and then some of the people who are just starting are going to be completely lost.
So
Yeah,
my
that's a
audience
tricky
is
thing.
these people and everybody in between. So I don't really think of just a single person or a persona, what they would call. I think
Okay.
of it as an audience, as a group. And
And that's
then when
kind
I'm
of,
approaching it, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Randy.
So when I'm approaching it, I'm looking at the elements of a plugin as an example. What does the menu show me? So if I'm bored of this, or if I can't even think about it today, and I got a headache and my mind just doesn't want to work on this, I go through the menu. And almost every plugin is going to have some sort of menu that you can go through and you can tell what's there. So you go through and you start telling what's there and you start gleaning information from it. Even if I don't know how to use this plugin, I'm figuring things out as I go. And I like to write about a plugin if I've never seen it before. I like to approach it from that standpoint, because then it's kind of a first impression. Um, it's somebody who has no idea what they're doing, and here's how they're handling this. And then a lot of times I'll find that I said something that was wrong as I'm going through this process, because I find, I'll say that it does this, and I find that's not exactly what it does. So I'm
Oh,
able to go
okay.
back through and fix it in my second draft. And so I typically do 2 drafts: first draft all the way through, second draft, and then I just make it a little bit more robust. So that's how I approach it. And by the time I'm done with that, I've gotten interested in the plugin. I've gotten interested in this feature or that feature, and then I've developed a layout with it, and then it's sparked my interest to the point that creativity actually just flows naturally. So I
Gotcha.
don't really put a lot of thought into that.
Very interesting. And to answer your question from a while back, because I think you kind of asked about teaching as writing. And the reason I asked you, do you kind of envision an audience or a person, is because that's how I do my tutorials and my courses. I like to record them like I'm in a room with a few people who I'm
Yeah.
teaching. Like, I want to keep it personal, because if you talk, and it's the same way with writing, I've found. Like, if I'm doing a course video, if I imagine I am in like a lecture hall with hundreds of people, I may come across completely differently. I may come across impersonal. And whereas if you come across like you're talking with one person, sometimes that can be a little too like too personal one-on-one, to where I want my tutorials and my course posts and everything to be to an audience, but I want to have that healthy balance of being personal yet not too intimate, like talking with one person per se. And I think it's interesting because it's the same thing with writing. Like when you're doing a blog post on a plugin, you're going to be, reaching potentially thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people eventually. We just talked a few episodes ago about how many views the Elegant Themes blog is getting. It's insane. So, it's interesting that you have to kind of write to the audience, but also in an effective way towards one person, also to a big group. Very interesting.
Yeah. And it's not easy to do.
Yeah. Would you say, like, so where you're at right now, you've really built up, let's see, it was 2014, right? That you started the business.
Right.
So over 5 years. And how do you feel about things right now? Are you content with where you're at, or do you feel like I know you like doing all kinds of stuff. Do you feel like you're ready to take the next level and add more things to your repertoire, or what does that look like?
I'm very content with what I'm doing. The only reason I would add anything different would be to fill in gaps for the slow times. And like you say, it's the busy time. It is for me too. And then, you might have a few months where it's a little slower than what you would like it to be. And then you have a few months where you're more busy than you want it to be. And, it balances out in the end, but, you kind of want some of that more busy to be less busy, and you want some of that less busy to be more busy. So
that's where it's so important when those busy times come to save and not blow the money and be like, hey, we can get this now,
But at the same time, that makes my wheels turn. If I'm left to my devices, I start coming up with ideas, and I start, well, what about this kind of business idea? What can I do here? What can I do there? I should write this book. I should create this course.
Right.
And next thing you know, I've got 14 websites started, and I don't have time to do anything on them now, because the very next week I get 4 clients that want twice as many articles as they wanted 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Not a complaint, but
right. With the good times and slow times, I was going to say bad times, but we'll call them slow times.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's a commonality between the seasons that they happen in, or is it kind of random? Because I know with web design, I've found that the beginning of spring is usually a really busy time, like February, March. A lot of companies seem to really get going. And then fall time is the same. Like September usually kicks off to be a very busy few months. Whereas holidays, a lot of businesses, they're focused on time off and family. And then even at the start of the year, I think a lot of businesses are focused on their business. And then they get into doing more marketing and website design like February or so. So slow times for web design seems to be summer when everyone's vacationing and then holidays. Do you find that the same with writing?
No, but it's similar. Winter is usually slower for me. Anytime that you have a big holiday, so we're talking about 4th of July, we're talking about all the big holidays. Anything around the big holidays is usually busy because a lot of websites have sales and they have new products that they want to promote.
Yeah.
And, you develop a new product, you're going to have to, develop some material for it and things along that line and have it ready to go before the product launches. So I'm helping with pre-launch. I'm actually helping a lot of companies with pre-launch, products and courses and things along that line that I'm developing articles for that they haven't even published yet, that they're not even going to publish until they're ready for their course to go live. And so I get a lot of that. But as far as just the articles themselves, it's usually slower in the winter.
Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't even think about that with the product stuff like you're probably coming up to your really busy, or you're in your busy season with Black Friday coming up soon. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Now are you in Knoxville or Memphis? Where are you at in Tennessee?
I am in Sweetwater, which is 30 miles south of Knoxville.
Okay. So I'm just like, what does your extended family and your friends think of your career path now? I said earlier, like, did they think you were crazy for quitting a corporate job? Are now people like jealous of you that you get to work from home and stuff?
Yeah, it actually didn't surprise anybody. Even the people that I worked with at Denso, and I had people calling me and congratulating me. It was natural. It seemed natural to all of them, and that's what made me feel good about the idea from the start. When I turned in my notice, everybody was like, "Well, yeah, we figured you would do something like that. We expected that. Yeah, of course you should be a writer." And my family was like, "Well, we already knew you were a writer, so duh." So it was a natural progression for me. It didn't surprise anyone, and that made me feel good. I had a lot of support from my family, especially my wife.
Okay,
Lucinda.
That's good.
And because
I was wondering about that. Yeah, because that's a big, like, to tell your wife, "Hey, I'm going to quit my job and go for it."
And she was like, "Okay." She's never worried once, not one time, and I really appreciate that. So I've got a lot of support from my family because of that, and that's another key point. When you're starting a business, you need support, not necessarily monetarily, but you need people to not give you bad advice. You need people not to discourage you. If you feel good about your idea, you've gone through the process, you've developed the business plan, you've done your research, the skill set is there, it's in demand, you can afford to supply what's in demand. You feel good about it. You don't need people discouraging you from that. And I didn't have that. I had everyone encouraging. So that was positive.
And people can accidentally scare you off. Like I had so many people tell me, "Oh, that's risky," or "I can't believe you're doing that." Right. And I had to really, like, those planted seeds of doubt in my head that I had to really quickly get over. Now I'm experienced enough to use that as motivation, or like I almost pity the person who doesn't think they can do it because they're stuck to stability and security over freedom and opportunity.
I did have a couple of people do that. One said, "Oh, that's risky." Another says, "I don't know. You still have to work here for the insurance," and things along that line. And so for that, I go back to my research. I've already read the books. I already know what's possible. I already know the positives and the negatives. The number one negative of writers is that they all wish they had started sooner. So I was thinking, I don't want to be that guy that wishes I had started when I was 46, when I'm 50. I'm going to go ahead and start at 46.
Oh, that's awesome.
And sure, it might take you a couple of years. You're 46 and it might take you 2 years to build this up to be a good quality business. All right. So how old am I going to be in 2 years if I don't start a business? It's just a matter of what you want to do.
Did you think about the worst case scenario when you started, and were you willing to accept that? Like if you knew if a few months in you just didn't get enough work to do it, you said you probably would have just worked somewhere else for a little bit or tried something else?
Yeah. Well, I was lean manufacturing, an industrial engineer teaching lean manufacturing and going out onto the production lines. doing time studies of the lines, reducing the waste in the process, reducing manpower. And that doesn't mean get rid of a person out of the company. That means use them somewhere where they're more valuable. Like I might walk up to a 10-man line and figure out that we have a 35-second cycle time. I can reduce this cycle time down to 30 seconds and at the same time reduce it to a 9-man line, saving manpower, saving time. So these people don't have to work overtime now. And then we can use this person back there on another line somewhere else. And I'm making their job easier. So I had the skill set already. And because of this, I've already gotten lots of job offers near me.
Okay.
So I knew the skill set's there, the work is there.
You were never going to end up on the streets if if it didn't work out.
So I knew that I could go get something.
Gotcha.
Now, not everyone is going to have that opportunity. Not everyone's going to be able just to go from what you're doing to something else. Like for example, if you're working retail, you might be a good cashier, but I don't want to belittle cashiers. But at the same time, that's not a high skill set.
Yeah.
You can be trained to be a cashier within a few days or a few weeks, depending on what it is. So I'm talking about a skill set that took years to develop. And, so if you have something that just takes a few days to develop, you're not going to go from job to job that easy unless it's in demand.
And that's just it. And it's one of those things where it's about the value you offer to the marketplace in general. Exactly. Like same thing, nothing against fast food employees, but if that's your career choice and your goal, you just have to accept that you're valuable as a person, but in the marketplace, if you're doing something that can be trained in a day or two, or to your point, like a couple weeks, you're not going to make as much as somebody who spent years and years perfecting something. It's honestly just not fair. It's one of the biggest things. Like when sometimes people kill me when they're starting out and they want to make such a high end figure or whatever. I'm like, you can get there, and that's what like courses are for, and that's what mentors and influence. Like that's why I'm doing this, is I want to help web designers get there a lot quicker than I did. But the thing is, like, you're not going to start out making bank. And I think all these get rich quick schemes and all of the advertising that tell people, or maybe come across like you can get rich quick. It ain't going to happen. No. And if it does happen, you're probably going to blow all your money because you haven't built that muscle that you need to do things sustainably and to be able to handle success, and success isn't like, I think you said earlier, it's not just monetary. There's a lot of other things in there. Exactly. I'm all about having a freedom and lifestyle you love and enjoy. Yes. So those are really important points to think about for people who are, starting like that. Yeah. Now, when you started, does your wife work as well? Did you have any other kind of supplemental income that helped during that period?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just had some savings and went for it.
Yeah. Just went for it. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Another thing you talk about, the steps, I don't believe in get rich quick. I believe in work. I believe in working hard for it. Because, of course, one person might do it, but that one person then turns around and teaches 1,000 people their process, and that's sustaining them. But they want to skip steps 2 through 11. They want to go from step 1 to 12. You can't do that. You have to develop the steps. That's the problem. Like you're talking about, they don't have that muscle developed. You have to develop the steps. Every single step in the process, every single milestone in the project has to be developed. And without that development, even if you get to step 12, if you don't have steps 2 through 11 developed, you're not going to be sustainable because you don't have the skill set. You don't have the mindset. It's just not going to work. And I like that you said that.
There's some gratification that gets lost in there too. If you get instant success, there's a sense of fulfillment that just isn't there, I'm at the point where I've learned so much and I've gone through so much crap as a business owner. A lot of that is due to my own faults, but that's just, it's business. It's lessons learned the hard way. And that's, it's what I try to help people avoid. I tell them, you're good. Look, not everything's going to be perfect. You're going to have bumps in the road, but you can avoid a lot of these really devastating things that made my hairline go back a little bit. You can avoid a lot of that stuff. And look, that's an engineering head right there, right?
I have a gray hair right there.
Just a couple. But I say that to say, like, to your point, those middle steps are so crucial. And I've really found that it's all about enjoying the process. Like, yes, you may not be making what you want to make yet. Right. and you may not be where you want to be career-wise in the end, but where are you? Like, are you on a good trajectory? Are you making positive steps every day? It doesn't have to be something monumental, but if you're making a little step every day in the right direction, a couple years down the road, who knows where you're going to be? You know, as long as you're supporting whatever your needs are at that time. Because for me, like when I started my web design business, I did not need to make as much as I need to make now. Now I've got a wife, soon to be 2 kids, and a golden retriever, and a mortgage, and 2 cars. You know, like there's a lot more responsibility on me now than there was when I started. But it was that same thing. It was like, I'm making enough to make my car payment or whatever at that time. And then it just kind of, you know, built from there. And now every success I have, I feel like there's a confidence in my, like in my soul now, because I'm like, I earned this. Like I worked my freaking butt off to get here. And nobody can make me feel any different. And there's a lot of power to that. So I didn't mean to derail us, but is that kind of how you feel as well?
Exactly. And it's a mindset. If it takes 200 steps to get from here to there, you can think of it, you take one step, you can think, well, I've only taken one step. Or you can think, I've taken one step and I only have 199 to go. You know, it's a mindset. And also you're talking about education, you know, courses and books. I find a lot of people try to derail the process and find the easy information. They don't want to study. They don't want to research. They just want to open your head and pour it in. But also they want to find the free information. And there's a lot of free information out there. There really is. But if you find a book or a course that gets you where you need to go, buy it. Pay the money for it. It's worth it. It is worth investing in yourself. I looked at it when I first started. I was like, well, I can search the internet for all these articles and figure this out, or I can buy this $12 book. I bought the $12 book, and you know, it gives you what you need to know. It's a process. It shows you the process. It teaches you the steps.
I've had so many students that have said, I wish I would have taken this course years ago.
Pay the money,
because some of my courses are, they're not, I wouldn't say higher end, because high end courses are going to be $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000. My courses right now, my most expensive one is my business course at $500. But my other courses that are even the mid range that are $200 to $300, that is a drop of an investment compared to the amount of time you would spend learning that all on your own. And I don't say that just as a course creator trying to sell courses. I'm telling you, and it's one of those things where I think most people starting out, they're going to hear that, but they're probably not going to believe that until about 2 to 3 years after, when you realize, we talked about it before, what's the most valuable resource in business? Time. You cannot get time back. That's whatever is going to save you time to get from point A to point B. That's what's worth investing in. And whatever, you know, can make you more money to build those muscles and to help you train in those middle steps. That's totally agree.
And if you're serious about your business, it will not take you long to make that money back.
And
it will pay for itself.
You mentioned free resources. You and I both contribute to so many free resources.
Yes, we do.
The problem with free resources is from the person who's reading it. What I found is that free resources, while they're really great and they can make a big impact and they can open the door, like
they're
most,
needed.
The only reason I sell courses now is because I've given so much for free. However, the people who don't invest in their business and don't invest in trainings or workshops or courses, and they just stick to free stuff, those are the ones who tend to spiral and just stay in the same spot. Because while, yes, free information can be very valuable, there is something about something free that just, there's not enough stock held in that or value from the consumer. Whereas if you pay for something, you're going to get a lot more out of it. Have you felt that too? Like, because a lot of people will read a blog and it may help, but it may not be life changer, or they may just, since it's free, they don't value it as much. Whereas even if it's an inexpensive training or something, or a webinar, it'll make you value it so much more, and it'll make you apply it, because it's like, you know what? I spent $100 on this thing. This better be worth my time, and I'm going to apply it. Right.
You're going to spend your time in it. You're going to invest in it. You invested money. Now you're going to invest time. If it's just given, if it's just there, you know, you can skim through, you can look at it. You know, I look through this and I skim through it, and I got a thing or two, and I'm going on to something else. And another problem with like free content, we need free content because free content informs us. It informs us about processes. It informs us how to do this one thing. It informs us how to use this one plugin. It informs us which plugin to choose for this one thing. But they are all not a whole process, but a standalone portion of the process.
And
they're
it's
not a course.
Yeah, because a course takes you from like beginner to expert or A to B. And I agree. And I'm very cognizant because I was in this position not that long ago. When you're just starting out, you really don't have any money. So you may not have even hundreds of dollars. Like I recognize that a course that's $300 for one of my students, that's probably a very big investment because most of my students are not high earning at a high earning place yet. So and that's one reason, like I go above and beyond on my courses. I understand that investment. Even for me to purchase a course, it's an investment. That's, I could be paying my car payment, but this is going to a course instead of that. So that's really important. But yeah, to your point, like the free content has like, I found that free content and premium or paid content, they both have different uses. Free content is to get you in the door, get that basic knowledge, get you going, get you inspired. But the paid content is what's really going to pay off. And really, to your point, it takes you in a journey. It's almost like watching, I guess I would equate it to watching an episode of a series versus watching the full series. Like if you watch an episode, you don't really know the characters. You're not as invested. It didn't really make a big impact. Whereas you watch a full series of a show, by the end, it made a big impact on your life, you know, and I never thought about that, but that's how I would view that.
Fortunately for me, we need both types of content.
Yeah. And luckily, I mean, the free content that you provide, you're getting paid for, at least as a blogger.
Exactly.
My free content is actually extremely costly.
Yours is an investment in your
mine
business.
is an investment. Yeah, I do free content knowing that, okay, if it takes me 5 hours to do a tutorial, if I value myself at 150 or 200, but let's say 200, that's $1,000. This tutorial, this amount of time I took away from my business is worth $1,000. So I'm hoping that this will either make a big enough impact that somebody it will resonate with them, and then it'll lead to the next step, or it'll pay off eventually.
It can be a lead magnet. It can be building credibility, building your audience, and it's all good. All of it is good.
Yeah. Wow, Randy. Well, this has been great, man. We've covered, I think we could talk 8 hours about this stuff.
Absolutely.
I know I'm getting hungry for lunch, and I know you are in a very busy season right now, so I don't want to.
I've got an article to you.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to. I know we're midday now, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but we talked about a lot of great stuff. Your story going from engineer to freelance blogger at 46 with no security net, just some savings. That's amazing. You talked about some really poignant things with how to write, knowing your audience. And then I think the lesson of just getting out, like, you know, who knows where a message is going to go. And you just sending that message to Brenda opened up the door to Elegant Themes. I think that's amazing. Covered so many good things with just the process of writing and just some business fundamentals in general. With all that said, do you have like a parting thought for anybody, particularly those who maybe are either contemplating a career change or want to be a writer?
If you're contemplating a career change, and especially if you want to be a writer, research. Research is key. Know your skills, know what you can write about, and see if what you can write about is in demand. You never know. We need all types of content. We need books. We need videos. Videos have to have scripts written. We need potato chip bag instructions. we need all types of content. And there's more than one type of writer: copywriter, technical writer, creative writer. See what works for you and see what's available. See what's in demand. See what you can offer. But do your research. Like for me, if I'm looking at a plugin or a theme or something like that, don't just copy what other people have written. Look at what other people have written in whatever field it is. Look at what they've written. See what they've done. See how they've approached it. But do your own research. If they say this plugin has this feature, load the plugin yourself and see if it still has that feature, or see if it ever had that feature. It might have been a feature that was promised to that writer, was never done, or it might have been a feature that they misunderstood. Know your content. Know your topic.
That's great.
And step through. Don't try to skip the steps. Go from step 1 to step 12. Don't skip 2 through 11.
Nice.
but make the move. Don't analyze it forever and never make the move. Make the move.
Yeah. Yeah. Action is so important. You can plan all you want, but a really great plan is crap if it's not applied. Right.
Make a smart move.
Was it an Eisenhower quote that said, a good plan executed well is much better than a perfect plan not executed at all? Something like that.
Exactly. And do that.
Yeah.
Do that.
That's great, Randy. Well, man, that's awesome. I'm really excited for you. I love hearing about your success and I'm glad to hear that you're content and you're not burnt out.
Yeah.
A lot of content creators get burned out, but it sounds like your path, and that's another thing, like, had you not gone through your previous career, your writing career would look much different. Maybe you would have flamed out by working too much or not managing that. And I'm going to get you involved with creating courses, because I think being that you're so documentation oriented and, detailed, that's just a born course creator. I think you could lay out an amazing writing course, and I'll be the first one to take it. So
I appreciate that.
Hopefully that'll be the next step. Then I'll convince you on doing that.
Congratulations on the blog. It's awesome.
Thanks, man.
A lot of amazing people on here.
The podcast has been super cool. One of my favorite aspects of it too is just the learning of it, because I learn from every episode. I'm fired up after this. I'm going to apply so much of this to my business, and I talk about free content and time consuming stuff. There's a lot to it, but I know it's going to pay off in a number of different ways. Hopefully financially with course sales, but also just I'm becoming more valuable as a person in business and just in life, hearing other people's stories and learning. So awesome, Randy.
Awesome. Good podcast.
Thanks for your time, man. I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Thanks.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.